Welcome to the Progress Zone podcast, where we help you create real momentum in your mindset, business, health, and life. I'm your host, Jody Donaldson, and every week we'll explore the small, intentional steps that lead to big, lasting growth. This isn't about hype, it's about habits. So let's get started. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the Progress Zone podcast. Today's guest is someone who understands the power of communication at the highest level. Mikaya Thurmond built her career in broadcast journalism, working in high-pressure environments where clarity, credibility, and presence matter every single day. She later made the bold transition into the private sector, where she now helps leaders, executives, and organizations communicate with impact, not just on stage, but in boardrooms, branding, relationships, and real-world influence. What makes Mikaya's story powerful isn't just what she's accomplished. It's the courage it took to pivot, the mindset required to keep growing, and the way she uses communication as a tool for progress, connection, and opportunity. Mikaya, welcome to the Progress Zone. I'm excited to have you here.
Jody, my friend, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on the Progress Zone. Been following all of your work. So to be in this lineup, it is truly an honor.
Well, thank you. Well, for listeners who don't know your story yet, can you just take us back a little bit? How did your journey begin and what brought you to where you are today?
That's great. Well, I'm a triangle. I'd like to say native at this point, Jody, because I think after a decade, we get adopted into the family. But I've been here about 10 years. And what actually brought me to the triangle was my old career, which was in journalism. So I came here as a reporter at the NBC and Fox affiliate. And I remember when I signed the contract, Jody, I said, you know what, I'm going to do 2 years and I'm going to get the heck out of here and go to the next city. So that way I can move up the totem pole. And I remember 2 years in of a 3-year contract, I was promoted to weekend anchor, which was my dream job. And then 2 years after that, I was promoted to weekday anchor. And I ended up looking at my life and I bought a house and I said, you know what, I really love this area, love this place. But hit an inflection point a little bit about what it was and what the news business is, which I'm sure we can get into. But it's changing, it's evolving. And I also, waking up every day and talking about the hardest things happening in the world wasn't necessarily where I saw myself doing for the rest of my life. And then came Milan Public Relations, where I'm CEO now, and I get to tell positive, impactful stories for organizations everywhere. So, Jody, we've been kind of on all sides of it, pivoting in the world of communications.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think too, coming as a new reporter into a new area has got to be hard anyways. I know the schedules are crazy, but did you know you always wanted to do journalism at that time when you were younger? Did you study it in school? Kind of what was your path into it?
It is okay. So I'm probably going to be the only person that ever tells this story on this platform. It is because I actually have been on TV since I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. I had a talk show called About Kids with Mikaya, and my mom, who was also a talk show host, secured it. It was on like public access television in Atlanta. So the between two ferns energy. So I have been on TV for quite some time, and in around my mom was doing radio and TV, went to school for journalism, always knew that was my thing, but hit road bumps. I feel like I always want to be honest and transparent, because I think when we look at it at the end, it's like, oh, this person was the youngest anchor in the station's history. It's like, well, you didn't see when I wasn't accepted in the journalism program, initially. Right. So I like to be transparent and talk about those things, but always knew that communications was my calling. And I think the art of the pivot is recognizing that we're not called to be a reporter and we're not called to be an anchor. That's not someone's purpose, but rather the skills that it takes to be in that place. Yeah.
Well, like you said, the goal to be an anchor or reporter, when you started your career, what did that path look like? Like, what was your, like when you're younger, the young Mikaya saying, I'm going to go into this. What does that look like back then?
Hungry. Like just hungry. And I will tell a story that I maybe have told a handful of people just publicly and privately. When I first graduated from college, I worked at a TV station in Atlanta called 11 Alive. And I was like one of the random interns that was just running coffee. Just the most menial task. But I remember befriending the team who at the time were the crew of the evening, the late show. So when the news goes off, the 11 o'clock o'clock news. It's usually like 12:30. And because I was bringing them donuts and hanging out and all of these other things, they said, listen, we know you want to be on TV. We're willing to stay after that show ends and to record an entire newscast, a fake newscast with you on the anchor desk. We'll mic you up so that way you get the opportunity to do it. That is how my first reel came to be. So the thing that I was sending out to TV stations who probably are just now finding out I was never really on the anchor desk is because of relationships, right? Which I think is something that applies no matter where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think that too, like you said, spending the time, getting to know the people there, then they wanted to help you and really, to get that first reel going, like without that true experience, you got the desk, you got the camera, you had everything you needed to really produce something that you could then send out and get recognized and seen. So that's awesome. Was there a moment then? So so you in it, you're successful, you're covering a lot of stories. Was there a moment? What was that moment, I guess, when you realized it might be time for a new chapter? Was there any particular thing? Or was it a combination?
I think it's both, right? So I like to say that God gives us pebbles, right? Little pebbles that will drop on your head saying like, hey, it's time to move. And then a brick will come if you don't listen. And so I think over time, I lost my passion for it. And I go back to what I achieved so quickly. 2 years and 2 years and 2 years to be at a top 30 television station, to be a woman and a woman of color. It all came so fast that I had to ask myself, is this really what I want to do every day? And of course, Jody, like the pandemic impacted all of us. It was bad. The stories we were covering and what we were exposed to from 2020 to 23, it broke me. It made me say, is this really how I want to make my money? And I remember every newscast led with the death toll that day. And that's not an exaggeration. It was a death toll. And it made me say, what else is there? And thankfully, I had kind of been in preparation. I had gone to Harvard, got my master's degree online. So while working a third shift, which means that I got to work at midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning every day. I was also in night school at Harvard, going online back and forth to campus as well. I graduated, so I had that in my back pocket. And then, one day I just told him I want to quit. That's really as simple as it was. There was no plan. There was no strategy. There was no nothing. And, I like to be really honest about that because that's the brick. It just happens one day where you say, this is not where I'm supposed to be. And for me, it was by my faith that I just said, there's going to be something else after this. But to tell that to 30-year-old Mikaya, my friends and family really had to trust me in order to make that move.
Yeah. Did you have that support from the friends and family, or were they like, what the heck are you doing?
They wanted me to do it a lot sooner. I remember my dad told me a long time ago, he said, you're not talent, you're corporate. And not to knock talent, because all of my friends are still in this. And I think my life wouldn't be what it is if I wasn't ever talent. But there's something to be said about having a teleprompter of words that come up every day that you didn't write, versus actually being the authority to write your own script.
Right.
And I think that's what my dad was getting at, was you are more than reviewing silly stories and bouncing in front of the traffic map every morning, or the weather map and those kinds of things. And I wanted more substance in what it was that I was doing. So I think all of those things mixed together kind of created this perfect tornado of, okay, I can escape. And there were so many people around me who said, and those who will remain nameless, inside and outside of the TV station, who said, I got a parachute. Here's someone I know, and someone I know, and someone I know who's going to get you where you need to be. So sometimes I guess the first lesson then that we're talking about is just, do it. Like, do it scared.
Yeah.
Do it scared.
Figured out, right? Like, you don't have to have it all. Learn as you go. And I think that's pretty amazing. What was the hardest part emotionally or mentally about leaving that public facing career? What was going through your mind, or struggles, or the hardest part about that?
Honestly, the hardest part is staying. And I know that that's hard to say. And so I'm going to put it in a context that I know you'll understand, Jody. The hardest part would have been staying. And I say that because when you're out of alignment with who you are, the weight of that is, and whether that be a job or a relationship, we've all been there, right? Where you're like, it could be a club that you've joined in school and you're just like, why am I still here? And so and I love all the people. Again, the people were the best part of the gig and the family, but I realized quickly that they can all go with me. I still talk to them every day. So I don't need to stay for the people. I need to love the gig. And a lot of what that public facing job meant was that I was performing. And I never felt like the mask got to truly come off. And even worse, Jody, I didn't know who I really was because I have been so prescribed to be a certain person, a certain type of woman, a certain type of Black woman, just by proxy of being in a public facing position, that I didn't know how I'd like to wear my nails because we weren't allowed to wear any nail polish. I just chose the colors that I knew would work well on television. And to have that happen in your 20s and to say, I don't know who I am, I mean, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, geez, that is. I appreciate you sharing that because that's something I think people don't think about and realize. And I know everybody's got their own struggles and their own lanes and their own bubbles of what they do, but it's just like hearing it. I just think it is validating to so many people that are probably in a similar situation and just like you said, not aligned. That the burden and the weight of that really just wears you down. And then when you're covering hard stories and sad news all the time and disasters, and it's like. It does wear on you, especially when you are a positive person and you're trying to spread light and joy on the world. And yet you have to do some of this. So I get that. But now you're in public relations. Now you're in the private sector. You get to see different things. What communication skill would you say that most professionals either overestimate or underestimate about themselves?
Oh my gosh. Those are two different questions, Jody. That's not fair.
We take one at a time.
Okay, we'll do one at a time. The communication skill that I think most people underestimate is writing. I think you must be an excellent writer in every facet of your life. And I think AI is also impacting that. I think we can get off on a tangent. I'm an AI integration consultant on the side. And so just seeing kind of what it's doing to everyone's brain, including my own, it's making us reliant on not writing. And I just think the process of writing is so important that I can emphasize in every facet of professional work. I think that thing that people are double clicking on too much is probably manufactured connection. I think in this day and age, everybody's a TikTok star. And there aren't real relationships. And I'm going to take a note from you, Jody. Our relationship, getting to know each other, years old. It might only be 10 years and somewhere in there. But when you authentically know somebody, you can always tap on that door and ask a question versus I think a lot of times is likes and shares and retweets. And it just is, there's just a lack of those real connections. So I think we should, in the world, lean more on connection and relationship, because no matter what hard thing you face, whether you need a comfort, whether you need to make a phone call, that has carried me everywhere, and especially in this transition.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, it's so important to, like you said, to know that you have those lifelines and connections to build over time. And then, just being able to not be afraid to ask for some guidance or help or support or whatever when you need it, because the folks that really truly are genuine and care will be there, right? So I love that. What from all the, you work with corporations, you work with brands, you do all sorts of things. Are there habits that like elite communicators or organizations that's got it figured out that average ones don't? Like what sets them apart for the folks that are successful in getting their message across? And
I'm going to give all your listeners the free version that everyone else I'm going to charge for. Okay. This is what I talk about in boardrooms across the nation, truly. Yeah. So I'll backtrack and just give a little context, because what I found is PR. People are like, what are you, a publicist? Like, what do you do? Celebrities, entertainment industry? No.
So what? Placement.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, and do you represent bands? I'm like, Not really. So what I do is corporate comms, which just essentially means we help people either get in the media, which is the positive, right? If you've got a nonprofit, a mission-driven organization that just needs attention so you can raise money, that's what we do. We also have clients that are in crisis management. And by that, I mean they want to stay out of the spotlight or they need help dealing with some issues that they have in the spotlight. We love supporting both ends of the spectrum. And then one of the cool things about being a business owner is I get to choose who I work with. So truly, all of my clients I absolutely love. So I would say that the idea of that work is so important. Now, back to your question, Jody, of what are the secret things that you can do to communicate your organization better than anything else? I'm going to say keep it concise. That's the number one issue I have. And Jody, I can do this. I'm going to pick on myself. Mikaya, tell me what makes your agency different or special. Well, we're different. This is what I get every single day, Jody. We're different because we're the best. We're a disruptor. And then there's total silence. And it's like, what does that mean? Or I get a 10-minute explanation of an app that you developed. And I'm like, I'm sorry. So what does it do? What does it do? My job is to take that 10-minute explanation or the vague answer that you've given that means absolutely nothing and turn it into something that's palatable and understandable. So if you don't have a PR person, if you never have a PR person, the first thing you should do is work on not your elevator pitch, which is what it used to be of like, if you're in an elevator with somebody, you know, and you have to explain, you don't have an elevator anymore. You have an escalator. So be sure that you are at this point able to say within 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds, what it is that you do. That's really one sentence, maybe two. I don't need to know your mission statement and what is it that you do. And I think they're like, oh, we support hearts across the world. And it's like, okay, here we go. World peace, right? Right. So we have to work on that, Jody.
Yeah, no, but I can see that, right? I mean, that's what we see in advertising sometimes too. And we're like, oh, for these infomercials and some of the things that go on forever, you're like, okay, what do you even do anymore? I don't even know. Let's go back to what your service is, you know. But yeah, that's interesting to see. But when you're working with them, like I think communication is a skill that we all can grow and learn on. But how much of that, when you're talking to these corporate execs or anybody that you're working with, is the mindset about it? And like, is it a skill they're working on, or like, how do they see it? Do they see it as like, oh, this is just something I should be able to do naturally, or this is something I got to work at and really hone my skill of it?
That's the best question I think I've ever gotten from anyone on this topic. Mindset is everything. And the reason I say that is because we lived in an era of like fake news about 5 years ago where everybody villainized the media. And I was working in the media at the time. So I know I was genuinely in fear of getting out of that live truck with a camera because I didn't know what was going to happen. I think at this point, I'm seeing leaders of organizations say, I know how to make this go away, or I know how to deal with this. I'm not going to say anything. And they are trying to use silence as a weapon. And that never, ever, ever works in your favor. Never. If you don't write your narrative, someone else will.
Yep.
No comment should never come out of an organization's mouth. And like, you know how you're chasing leadership out of a building and they're like, no comment, get that camera out of my face. None of that should ever happen. There's always a comment. There's always a way to say something. So part of that mindset shift is that the media is not a villain. It is a tool. There's a quote that I still hold as my favorite quote of all time about the media, but it says, whoever controls the media controls the mind. Mm. So whoever controls the communication controls the mind. So you choosing to stay silent will never control the narrative. So it's a counterbalance because it means that you have to make friends with people that you kind of feel like are evil or icky or whatever that thing is. But that's what is needed at this point. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I think too, hearing you talk about it, I wonder how much, and maybe you could shed some insight into this, but of the folks that you're talking to, that not only the speaking and the communication is so important, but also just listening and what role that plays in conversations, whether it's you with a client or the client with understanding what they're trying to do. What do you think about that? listening is critical, and more importantly, Jody, listening to the question being asked.
Yeah.
More often than not, when we meet someone, and I'm guilty of this more than anybody, right? They say, hi, my name is, and 3 seconds later, you have no idea what their name is.
Right.
I don't remember. And so I go, oh my gosh, what was that person's name? We're not listening anymore. We're waiting to respond. And sometimes, even if it's a written question, even if it's how we communicate with on our social platforms, right? Because that's also a platform and the media. So social media is a form of the media. That all of that matters. And so I think that's a part of it that we're missing is what are people saying and being willing to listen in the sense of the ego side of it. Because sometimes the feedback hurts us, right? Sometimes someone says, if you wear a purple blazer one more time, Mikaya, goodness gracious, like, I just don't think I can look at you. It's like, okay, my reaction is, well, something I can't say right now. But the heart of that is, can you take feedback? Can you listen? And can you use that as a tool to say, well, what makes you say that? And even if you're being attacked, and I often do this, and where did you get that information? Just that simple question of where did you hear that?
Yeah.
Being willing before you get defensive to say, well, where did you find that out about my leadership style or about the book that I just put out? And that shows and almost disarms the person that you're speaking to, because it shows that you're willing to be on that listening seat and that you're not driven by just talking at someone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. I think so many times, like you said, people are already thinking about what they're going to say before the person's even done, and then hear anything that person said. And that just creates the miscommunication and then friction and all the other stuff that comes along with that. Right. So, yeah. Well, something too, you kind of touched on it when you were talking about, the late crew and when you did your first reel, but, I talk a lot of times about how communication, I think, directly impacts the relationships and opportunities. And I feel that so many people struggle, and I guess I shouldn't generalize it. I think a lot of people struggle to build authentic professional relationships. And I don't know, why is that? Do you have any thoughts on that? I know that's an odd question, but it's just, I feel like a lot of people struggle with, how do I build an authentic professional relationship with someone that,
I know the real answer. I'm interested to see, Jody, whether you agree with this. For me, I'm going to do TV news and then I'll talk about corporate, because TV news is a different type of competition.
Yeah.
I think we go into everything as if we're in an episode of Hunger Games. If Jody does well, then that means I did not. Not if Jody does well, then we did well. And so getting back to what you said, mindset, right? I'm not going to root for you if I feel like if they clap for Jody, they're not clapping for me anymore.
Right.
That drives a lot of thought patterns. And getting back to the way news was, and I'm talking about 10, 15 years ago, and this is industry wide, this is not any place in particular. There was like one black girl, right? One black girl that gets to sit per show. And if it isn't me, it's going to be you, or one girl, even. It's got to be a girl and a boy, or whatever, or, a one age person. So it's like, we're not all going to be young. Someone's going to have to be older. So it just creates this theory that you must take out those who are like you rather than align with them. And so now, as I talk about corporate, because the TV is so niche, but I think that oftentimes we really struggle to build those relationships because trust is not there. It takes one time where you tell someone, hey, I had a really bad meeting, and then they go tell your manager that you say, I cannot trust anybody at this job. So the best ways that I develop relationships are outside of the office. And I also have some key rules, Jody, about how I develop corporate relationships and when and what spaces and, whether I'm drinking or not drinking. I remember when I left news, I had probably a room full of people say, do you even go out like outside of work, or do you even drink? And I'm laughing because of course I do. I'm not doing it with y'all, but of course I do.
Right.
So I think those things are really important, that we decide what it is that we want to learn. And for me, I needed a girl gang around me. Like, I needed women who have done the PR thing, who are other entrepreneurs, who are bosses in the C-suite. And then I also needed men around me who can kind of break me out of the, oh, I don't want to speak too loud and I don't want anyone to think I'm not nice. And it's like, if you don't get up there and go run this meeting, we don't care about how you feel. So it's just this good mix of people who are like you, not like you, that really challenge you to become the best you. And that's in every space. Jody, what do you think about that?
No, I love that. I think it's so important too, the being authentic and transparent and vulnerable. Like truly, if you could be that way, I feel like, and you touched on, a little bit about that increases the trust, I think. And if you don't build that trust early on, it's not going to end well for either person or party. And so, no, I agree with that. I think you need to be just fully who you are. And I think too, that goes back to what we talked about earlier about alignment, right? When you're aligned with what your purpose and what you feel you should be doing, then it's natural. Then you do come off as more relaxed and just easier to connect with, I think.
I think the other thing that's really fun is when you're not afraid to make a mistake and you're not afraid to be wrong. The one beautiful thing that live television taught me is that I say a lot of stupid stuff. And so when you're on live TV and you say the president of some random country's name wrong, it's like, okay, well, I got 6 more hours to go. And I've given myself now that grace in the corporate world. It's like, oh my gosh, that meeting wasn't my best. It's like, okay, what are my learnings? And then move on. And I don't beat myself up in the way that I think sometimes others might overthink how they showed up in various spaces. So if you, I think, can give yourself grace to make a mistake, it's much easier to bounce back.
Well, and it humanizes you, right? We all make mistakes. He's perfect. So I think if that happens, it just shows, oh, he or she is a person too. And we all do the same things and bleed the same blood and do all the, we're all just, in that same boat. And I think that's so important to realize. And you mentioned it a few minutes ago too, about, I can't be happy for you because it's taken away from me. That whole mentality and mindset and competitiveness of life, which I feel like it's everywhere. Like it shows up in work, it shows up in relationships or anything else, that I just think, like, if we could just step back from that and why can't we lift each other up? Why can't we support each other? I want you to do well. You're going to want me to do well. We're going to win as a team. A rising tide raises all ships. Like, I don't know why we can't do that. So that is a hope for all of us, I think. And I want people to be able to take that with them. But so let me ask you this. You're a busy lady. What does progress look like for you in your life right now? I mean, you're in the private sector, running a company. What does Mikaya do to stay grounded and keep the right mindset?
Progress right now looks very different than one would think it looks. Progress to me is work-life balance. So rewind back to that time I told you I was working at 2:00 in the morning every day and going to night school for 3 years straight. I'm not good at balancing fun, joy, happiness, anything. I'm a grinder. I'm a hustler. I'm up early and I'll work late. Progress to me now looks like taking a spa day, like I did yesterday, and going to go get a massage for an hour during my break. It is me taking time to go see friends, go see family, and to not overextend myself. My yes is a hell yes and not a, yeah, I guess I'll do that with you. It is an absolute hell yes. I want to go. And I no longer do the forced yes. Unless I can show up and be where my feet are, that I don't do it. And so all of those things are when I go to bed at night and I close my eyes and I say, was I where my feet were? Was I present in every meeting? Did Jody get the best of me that day? Or was I thinking about like the snowstorm coming and, whatever else that's happening? And so that's progress. Every day is showing up more. And then my faith and my time with God. I'm committed this year to doing more of that, prayer time, all of those things. So all of the things that are progress for me are more balanced because I recognize I get one life. And probably if I pass away, not too many people are going to talk about the press release that I drafted. So that's why I said they should say other things, but it won't be the things that, to me, I spend most of my time on.
Yeah, that is, I love everything about that because I think it's kind of the surrounding yourself, like you said, the people that support you, that lift you up, and then, just encourage you even when things are down. And then also having the grace to know that I need to do self-care. I don't think a lot of us do the self-care that we need, and realize how stressed and overworked and chaotic our lives are, that, like you said, one life, we have one life. How can we make it the best? How can we show up best for our friends, for our family, and our relationships, however you need to show up for. And if you're not taking that time for yourself, I think it's so important. And I do think that around the world, we struggle with, maybe just in the US, we struggle with a work-life balance. I don't know that that's an actual thing. I know everybody strives for it, but it seems like it's hard to do sometimes.
It's hard. And one of the things that I figure out on how, especially because we're talking to leaders today, Jody, is what would I do for free and do more of that? And if I need a lot of money to do whatever, it's probably not where I want to be. If I'm passionate about painting or whatever, and so much so that I would do it with my one eye open because I'm so tired, that's what I do more of. And that's been the unlock for me. So it's not so much work-life balance where the balance is you sitting at a spa, which it meant for me yesterday, but that's once a year that I do that. Instead, it means, what is that yes that I really want to do? I like designing. Like, that's not necessarily my day job, but I love designing. I love creative. So anytime I get an opportunity to do more of that in a project to wow a client, I love doing that.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. Well, and that, like you said, that's something that you're passionate about, and it comes out authentically, I'm sure, when you're talking and the work that you're doing, because it's something that you kind of are aligned with. So I love that. Let me ask you, it's hard running a business, and it's hard, doing all that. How do you stay motivated when maybe the growth or the work itself feels slow? Like, how do you get through that?
This is Jody. I will give you background on the company. I don't market and I don't advertise anything, and it hasn't gotten slow. I think what has happened, though, this is my truth is, I'm someone who went to journalism school, and I don't know if anyone knows this, but they don't teach you numbers in journalism school. There's no math involved. So part of being an entrepreneur is running a business. And when you don't have any business experience, oh my goodness, the anger and the frustration that I get with myself when someone's like, oh, you don't have, and I remember the first conversation, you don't have a CPA. This was several years ago, but I'm like, why do I need a CPA for what? And it's like, oh, Uncle Sam does what now? So like those things keep me up all night, because the reality is you can be good at the job and still need to run a business and make sure that, all your tax stuff is taken care of. So those things I think really are hard. And when I get frustrated with that, what gets me over the hump is just this idea that I wouldn't have this situation if I wasn't called to it. And that can be even if you're a mom or a dad. It's like, I wouldn't be blessed with this child if I wasn't called to that. And so I just think I try to ground myself in that. And then I also usually call my soon-to-be husband and say, hey, I'm mad, my mom, my dad. And they say, okay, this is time to phone a friend. And it goes back to those relationships, because I can pick up the phone and ask anybody, hey, who did you call? What did you do? And that mentorship has saved my butt time and time again, because coming out of reading a teleprompter, running a business is wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. You don't have a teleprompter script for running a business. Every day.
I'm like, is anyone going to write this up for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking for my earpiece. Hello?
Yeah. Where are you? Please help me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not working. Oh my God.
Exactly.
No. I love that. Well, and I can imagine too, being in the realm that you're in, and your experience and life experience, that, what success looked like to you has probably changed over time. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like your belief in what it is now to you compared to what it was when you were younger?
Oh, that's great. So when I first started out in news, success was a chair. And I meant literally the chair behind the anchor desk. Like, I knew that if I had that chair, I had everything. And the way life's, and God is funny. He gives you the chair and he goes, so you have everything, right? And it's like, oh, wow, this is it. This is what everybody's fighting over. But this is absolutely great, but this is not, it wasn't here. And so I feel blessed that in my 20s, I got what I was praying for. So I could stop praying for a thing and start praying for a purpose and changing my mindset about like, it's not going to be when I make a dollar amount, because guess what? I made it. And then
Yeah.
what? And then, and what's funny is you get that 2% raise and then it's like, oh, I don't even know. I got a 2% raise.
Right.
So, all of those things happen, or you get married and you're like, oh, I thought I was supposed to be happy now that I'm a husband or now that I'm a wife.
Right.
And so I realized quickly that the old book, Who Moved My Cheese? I don't know if you ever read that one, but it's like, okay, and this is important that I stop putting it external to me and that I start doing the hard work. So now my goals are, I want to like all my clients. I want to love all my clients. I want to wake up every day and not feel like I have to do, and say I get to do. And what happens is on occasion, right, we veer off the path and I go, oh, I got to go do this. And it's like, oh, wait, what was that? What was that we just said? And how do we fix it? That means we are stepping out of alignment. We are starting to now do things that we feel like we have to do and not like I get to do this great mission video or I get to support this amazing municipal client and go see the team, all across the nation, really. So it's just been fulfilling to challenge myself and check myself and see and monitor almost when my energy starts to go down. Like, Jody, do you have those people where you get off the phone and you're drained?
Oh,
and you're like
exhausted.
Dang. Yeah. And it's not because you had a long day. It's just like that didn't fill me up. That actually took life out of me.
Yep.
And so when I see that happen, it's like, what was that? Okay. If that's happening, there's no amount of money in the world that will make it worth it. So that's when I stop it.
Yeah. Well, and I love it too, because you get to be able to, in your role now, you do get to pick and choose who you want to work with. If you got someone who you just don't align with their mission or their story or whatever it is, you can say, you know what, I don't think we're a good match. I wish you the best of luck and go from there, because you're not focused on just, I got to make more money. I got to do this. I got to get another client, right? You're really building it in the way that I think sounds like it's truly aligned with who you are. And I think that's the way we all wish to strive to be in our work. So no, I think that's super cool.
There is a way, and I want to just pause on that, because the way I described it made it sound like a fairy tale. And I want to just double click on what it would look like if you worked for another organization and you didn't get to choose, right? And I'm going to go to the career I had before being a reporter. It's how you tell the story. I remember when I started getting tired of door knocks, and by that, it's a industry word for essentially someone passes away and you got to go knock on their family's door to say, hey, you want to talk to this TV camera? It used to make my skin crawl walking down those driveways, knowing that some families having the worst day of their entire lives. And you're like, hi, I've got a camera. And so I had to ask myself what I was going to do while I was still doing it, right? I knew I wanted to leave, but I still am making impacts on people's lives. And I said, maybe God can use this for me to bring a blessing to someone. So rather than going with a transactional nature of will you talk to the camera? I truly sat and listened. I truly said, how are you? And, to hell with the camera, whether they ever talked or not. But just saying, I'm praying for you and you're going to get through this. And I just believe this is a sign that da-da-da-da-da. And so by changing my why, I can still have to do the job, but it's just why you do the job. And understanding that I think could help a lot of people. Yeah,
absolutely. And like you said, little change of that mindset or communication to yourself, like I get to do this, or here's how I can help someone else. Like when you start thinking that way and you start seeing things in that light, I think it builds some momentum into your whole being to where now you're looking from the glass half full, right? All the time. And you're like, okay, here's the things I can do. So no, I appreciate that about you, because I think that's showed how much success you've had is because of the person you are and the way that you show up. So kudos to you for being that way.
I appreciate it. As you know, it takes a lot to figure it out, but when we do, tell everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I got some a lightning round type question, just some quick questions that I think just to get to know you a little bit more. Is there a book that has shaped how you communicate? Anything that you've read or anything that's
The Four Agreements, and I'm trying to remember the art. It's like Thai. I'm not going to get the author right, but it's a very famous book, The Four Agreements.
Okay. Say that again.
The Four Agreements.
The Four Agreements. Oh, okay. Okay.
And
Okay.
it's tied to a lot of Eastern faith and principle and that kind of thing, but just rooted in a lot of truth. I love that book and have read it multiple times.
Nice.
I'm a big self-help book kind of person, so those things make me happy.
Yeah.
And that right now I'm like reading something like Losing the Art of Perfectionism, which I'm wrapping up right now, which has been extremely helpful to be a recovering perfectionist.
Oh my gosh. It, being a perfectionist stalls you in so many ways sometimes.
I know.
You
Oh,
grow
yes.
stagnant because you're like, it's not perfect. I can't do it.
I
Man,
know. It doesn't
once
have
you
to
can
be
get
perfect.
over that, right? Like things start happening
Right.
and opportunities start presenting because you don't have to have it all figured out. But I get that
Exactly.
perfectionist thing. I struggle with that my own sometimes. So
Mhm.
what about one daily habit that you do every day? Is there something like you have, like you get up, you work out, you have coffee? Like what is your kind of routine that you do every day?
The first thing I do after my Yorkie wakes me up demanding for food, the first thing I do is I have like a little 365-day Bible study plan, but more
Nice.
fun than that. I love doing that. I start my day every day. I have a gratitude journal and I write one thing that I'm grateful for. Literally, it's just one sentence. And some days those days where you got to reach, it's like, I'm grateful nobody's talking to me right now. Like,
Right? Right.
so that gratitude journal, I cannot wait. Because I either know it's either going to be my kids, it might be my soon-to-be husband, it might be somebody. But I said someone's going to look at this one day and be like, "Wow, like these are all the things that made her smile."
Yeah.
But that's usually how I start my day. I like quiet work first thing in the morning
Yeah.
because when the emails start I can't get anything done, so
Yeah.
I'm doing all the things that require the most focus first thing in the morning. The hardest thing that I have to do will be first up, and then I usually allow myself some like video game time, and then I'm done.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. That's so cool. Well, how about a mistake that you're grateful for? Anything that
Oh God.
really you hated at the time, but maybe appreciate it after the fact?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So one mistake that I'm grateful for, I'm going to tell this story because I think the statute of limitations is up. Um, in my very first like real job over in Chattanooga, I was at the time and shooting video and also being the on-camera person, which they used to call like a one-man band, but that's genderized, so a one-woman band. And in this particular process, I had put something on television that was a crime scene with a lot of profanity written all over it.
Mm.
And I was not aware at the time that it was there until it got on TV. And so then we have to have a conversation, my boss and I, about FCC violations and all the things. And I remember that he looked at me crying, like, I mean, just crying. He said, I just fought for you with this national company because this is like the one thing you're fired instantly because of the fine that comes with it. He's like, I just fought for you and said, absolutely not. She's too good. She's going to be a star. I know who he is. He's retired now, so I'll say his name, Tom Henderson. Changed my life because he showed me so much grace that now it's how I lead my team. I have
Mhm.
team members who make mistakes every day, and I tell that story
Yeah.
probably every week to someone on my team, just because I want them to know mistakes, especially the young ones. You're going to
Sure.
do stupid stuff. You're going to do FCC violations, but it just takes one person to believe in you and to say,
Yeah.
don't do it again. But also, I believe in you and I'm not giving up. So
Yeah.
that's a mistake that I'm grateful for because it's changed how I boss,
Yeah.
if that's how I can put it.
Yeah, and that's powerful, right? Like, I mean, somebody went to bat for you, and that also helps build confidence in you as you go forward, knowing that okay, I show some grace, move on, and I can learn from. But yeah, that's so cool. What about underrated skill people should develop?
Underrated skill, puzzles. I love a puzzle. My dad used to make me almost like a boot camp do puzzles. But it was like a thinking. He told me later, he's like, I was trying to teach you how to think, how to problem
Nice.
solve. And I think that just by taking time to do puzzles more, And I'm talking real live, like old school puzzles. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
500 pieces. I think we learn how to navigate difficult situations, how to walk away and come back to something, knowing
Mm,
when to take a break. There's so many elements that I think I've learned, like working from the outside in,
right.
like how you navigate. Like there's so many tools that I think really help just in everyday life.
I love that. I wouldn't have put that together. Like, but you're so right.
Yeah,
It's life lessons and just doing a
it's
puzzle.
life cycle.
Like,
Hmm.
oh wow,
Hmm.
I love that. That's actually really cool. So, what would be one piece of advice that you would give your younger self, knowing where you are
Oh,
today?
the one piece of advice would be to stop worrying.
Mm,
Although, and I think when you look at my resume, everything just looks so shiny. And that's why I really like to talk about what's in between the lines.
it's
Whenever I'm
pretty
speaking,
impressive.
that's what I say. It's what's in between the lines that matter. It's
Yeah.
my first boss at a TV station. I remember when I wasn't on TV, you know, that same crew I told you about? I
Yep.
was working at that particular TV station, and I finally gotten the job. I got my first on camera job. And the person who was my boss wanted me to stay and be a producer and to not go on TV. And this person looked at me and said, "No one in their right mind should hire you to be on TV." And
Oh,
I'm like maybe 20 when I hear this. Uh, but I can only talk to my younger self and say it's going to be fine. Like I was like I was like, why would you say that? And all those things, crying in the car and in the
right.
bathroom and all these other things. But just that it's going to be okay and stop worrying. But I share those stories because if you think that someone looked at me and said, "Baby, you're going to be a star," that's just not what happened. It's just
Yeah.
not.
Oh man, that's I appreciate you sharing that because I think that is pretty amazing. And like you said, your resume, by the way, is super impressive. So that's one thing, right? So, but you're right. There's so much in between that makes you who you are. And I really appreciate you sharing so much of it today. I got one final question, and I think if someone listening today just feels stuck, whether it's professionally, personal life, or they're just afraid to make a pivot, what would you want them to hear? You've lived it, so I think I'm anxious to hear your insight on that.
I think that we are taught now that things can be like the end of the world. Um, I failed in so many different kinds of ways that I would say, and seen other people fail in so many different kinds of ways to just. I wish that everyone who's about to take that hard pivot, that they would just be willing to recognize that nothing's the end of the world. And I say that in the venture of mental health. I think that sometimes or I know that we have a loneliness epidemic. People are using AI chatbots for relationships because they're
Yeah,
just afraid to be judged by other people. I would just say, don't be afraid. It's not the end of the world, and there's no reason for your mental health to suffer. So I would go that deeply. If you are paralyzed in the pivot, oh my gosh, that's the name of my next TED talk. If you're paralyzed in the pivot, just know it's not the end of the world. Just
yeah,
one step at a time is always the answer. I never knew anything I was ever going to do. I made it all up. I made it look like I knew what I was going to do, but it was all made up. I'm making it up right now. And that's okay.
yeah, yeah. No, that is so true, and I think so important for people that I've mentioned to you before. That feel like there's a lot of people that are just walking around empty shells. They don't know what to do. They don't. There's no, like you said, they're disconnected from each other. They're disconnected from family and friends and coworkers, and there's still virtual work a little bit, and it just connection is so important in so many things. And I think that that's something that we all need to work on to be better. So I'm glad that you shared that. Well, Mikaya, thank you so much for being here today. I can't tell you how awesome this conversation's been. I really appreciate you sharing your story and your insights. I just feel like, I couldn't wait to have you on to share because I know you've had this amazing career and you're still doing amazing things. And so I just thank you for being here today.
Jody, anytime you call, I'll come running. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. Well, and to everyone listening, if this episode added value to your life, your business, or your mindset, make sure you subscribe, follow the show, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, progress isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, taking action, and getting just a little bit better every single day. And I'll see you in the next time inside the Progress Zone. Thanks for joining me in the Progress Zone. If today's episode gave you a spark, share it with a friend, subscribe, or leave a quick review. And remember, progress isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. I'm Jody Donaldson, and I'll catch you next time inside the Progress Zone.